Hello everyone, my name is Jared Pinder. I'm a recreational therapy major here at FIU, and today I will be doing a presentation on the therapeutic use of sports for individuals who have disabilities. So, what are sports essentially? So, sports are defined as a competitive physical activities that are performed for usually pleasure. It requires some physical form of effort and are played under a fixed set of rules. Now, when performing in sports, there are three levels that they can be played at. The first level is known as the recreational sport, or the first level. So this essentially is a sport that's engaged primarily for fun and health and fitness. So when you think of this, think of like going to a park with your friends, family, or peers, or even coworkers, for example, to perform a game of, let's say, kickball. That's a good example. You can play other different types of sports such as football, basketball, baseball, all that. So really with this sport type, you're just going out there to have fun. There's really not much rules. It's just really to go out there and engage and more of social, just really also be bonding with people. So the next level that sports we play at are known as the competitive sport, also known as the second level. So this sport involves performance that has standards and imposed conditions. So when you think of this, you can think of like playing a sports league at your local YMCA. This is like a rec league. So here you have to go to your daily practices and your games. Also, you're on teams where you have a coach and you have to follow the coach's guidelines. Likewise, there'll be referees that referee the game, so you have to follow their set of rules. So at the next level, which is the highest level, is elite sport. So this is the third level. This is limited to people who participate at the top level of sporting competition. This you can think of like such as professional sports leagues such as the NBA, MLB, the NHL, professional soccer leagues worldwide. So these are people who usually train from college or even go from all the way younger. They train all their life to try to get to these professional sports leagues. So considering all this, individuals who have disabilities also have the same right and reason to engage in these various and levels of types of sports. So now we will be discussing the history, a description, and the purpose of the therapeutic use of sports. So starting off with the history, the first sports organization for athletes who had disabilities was the International Committee of Silent Sports. This was formed in 1924, and in 1935 it was joined by the United States. Now likewise, sports for people who were deaf were popular throughout much of Europe by 1924. And following World War II, sports for people with disabilities started to experience more and more recognition. Now, once the 1940s rolled around, wheelchair sports were introduced in England and also in the United States. Following all this, in the beginning of the 1950s, people with disabilities started to form organizations that began competing at the local, state, national, and even international levels. Now, as such, as sports participation for people with disabilities grew, you can imagine that barriers were starting to become encountered. Now, prominent examples of this included a lack of physical access for people with disabilities and also, unfortunately, discrimination. Now, to combat all this, federal legislation started being implemented in the 1960s that provide greater access to facilities and programs for these individuals who had disabilities. Moving on to the description portion for the therapeutic use of sports. Now, often for individuals who have disabilities, sports can often be modified to meet their various needs. So there are generally three categories that are used to meet the three different types of limitations. This includes sports that for people with physical limitations, sensory limitations, and cognitive limitations. Now, sports for people with physical limitations often includes a variety of mainstream sports for individuals who utilize wheelchairs. This includes basketball, racquetball, softball, tennis, and archery. Likewise, people who use wheelchairs also can participate in track and racing events such as famous marathons and triathlons. Moving on, sports for sensory limitations includes people who are deaf, blind, and visually impaired. Often these sports are modified so that the individuals have a participant that can help assist them throughout the whole sporting event. Finally, sports for people with cognitive limitations are best served by including these people with their peers who don't have disabilities. These modifications are usually unique to the individual. Now, moving on to the purpose for this facilitation technique, the therapeutic use of sports provides the same benefits and sometimes even more to individuals who have disabilities compared to individuals who don't have disabilities. Likewise, these individuals who have disabilities share similar reasons and motives in which they participate in adaptable sports. This facilitation technique can provide various physical, physiological, and psychological changes. Likewise, there are various modifications that allow individuals who have disabilities to participate in several sports. This can be seen as adaptable sports are becoming more and more popular. There are major events that occur around the world, sporting events, in which athletes who have disabilities participate in. An example is the Paralympic sports. So, as you can see, these athletes have a passion as they train hard for these sporting events, and likewise, they share the same mindset as athletes who don't have disabilities. When you evaluate the therapeutic use of sports, you also have to consider the theoretical foundations that come along with it. There are various theories that have been used and developed in the research of sports for people who have disabilities. However, for this presentation, we're only considering 3 of them. This includes personal investment, achievement motivation, and social role. Starting off with personal investment, this basically explains the motivation for people who have disabilities and why they participate in sports. The theory explains motivation as a 2-stage process. In the first stage, factors that give meaning to the situations are considered external to the participant. In the second stage, however, the meaning of a particular situation leads to the degree of personal investment by the individual. So essentially, the theory frames motivation as a process of how the individual chooses to allocate personal resources. An example can be choosing to ride a bike over sitting down and watching TV. Now, taking a look at the second theory, which is the achievement motivation theory, this theory is used in discussions that analyzes an athlete with disabilities, their competitive nature and attitudes. It essentially explains competitiveness as an interaction between personality and the environment that leads the desire of the individual to succeed. Now, people who tend to be more competitive are theorized to be interested in sports. They're more goal-driven, have higher goals set for themselves, and are more persistent in the pursuit of excellence in that field of sport. On the other hand, people who are less competitive are less likely to pursue sports in the same intensity and vigor as their competitive counterparts. Now, taking a look at the last theory, which is the social theory. The social role theory basically can be applied to individuals who have disabilities who participate in sports. For example, people who label themselves as athletes tend to identify with the roles of athletes and expect to be acknowledged as such by other individuals. So athletic identity is often created and can have important inferences. Its creation is developed through various factors such as athletic skill development and social interaction during sporting competitions. Now, for this part of the presentation, we'll be talking about the effectiveness of the therapeutic use of sports for 3 different populations. We will be discussing the research that was conducted for each population, and starting with the first one, it's happened in 1998, where Arnett and colleagues examined the effects of a 9-week swimming program on the cardiovascular fitness and the basic water skills of 8 individuals who were both blind and had severe and profound intellectual disabilities. Cardiovascular fitness was measured before and after the swimming program by having participants complete a 12-minute walk or run test, depending on what the participants preferred. Swim skills were assessed with the Special Olympic Aquatic Level 1 Swimming Assessment. This assessment includes a variety of steps and procedures. So, for example, the swimming program included a 30-minute changing period before and after the sessions, a water entry, a 12-minute walking in the shallow end of the pool, a 16-minute skill practice, and a 2-minute cool down. Now, following the conduction of the research and analysis of the results, the authors conclude that individuals who are blind and had severe and profound intellectual disabilities learned swimming skills and had an increase in cardiovascular fitness levels. Now moving on to the second research study, it happened in 2014 where Delaney and colleagues examined the perceived improvement of physical abilities, which include flexibility, muscular strength, muscular balance, and endurance. 75 participants were evaluated of various ages and genders with a variety of physical disabilities. They were in a TR adaptive sports program comprised of both water and land-based activities, and it was noted that the most common disabilities observed were stroke, spinal cord injury, and traumatic brain injury. Now, considering this, researchers distributed a 23-item questionnaire asking the participants to rate their perceived improvements over time. And interesting enough, participants noticed that a perceived improvement of over 60% on flexibility, muscular strength, muscular endurance, and balance. Now, on the other hand, individuals with spinal cord injuries reported significantly less improvement compared to those with other disabilities. So for the third and final study, we will be looking at a study that occurred in 2002 where Campbell and Jones examined the cause of stress in an international team of 10 elite male wheelchair basketball players. The average age of these players was 32 years old. So all the players were interviewed and the 10 sources of stress were identified. These included preventative concerns, negative match preparations, on-court concerns, post-match performance concerns, negative aspects of a major event, the lack of appropriate group interaction and communication, negative coaching style and behavior, issues related to relationships, expenses and demands of wheelchair basketball, and the lack of awareness about disability. The identified stress sources experienced were mostly related to the competition process, the organization need to be competing in the elite event, and the interactions with important people associated with the event. Okay, for this part of the presentation, we'll be doing the therapeutic use of sports, the implementation of the activity. We'll be doing a football drill circuit. Now this drill circuit is made for beginners where it shows the fundamentals of football, and this circuit is great, adaptable for individuals who have autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. So I will be having my dad here, who will be coming to help me. He'll be the participant in the video. We'll be here showing you the basic fundamentals. So for this drill circuit, you want to have a nice spacious area. We chose a park in our local area. If you really want to get into it, you can wear your favorite team jersey, as I have mine on, the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa. So before we even start, you have to know how to properly hold and throw a football. So as you can see, this is my football. There are many like it, but this one's mine. Now, for individuals who have autism, it might be better to use a smaller ball, as this is a full NFL size ball. There's also styrofoam balls, rubber balls, footballs, so whatever you have is perfect. So many people throw footballs in different ways, but this is the way I throw it. So as you can see, you always want to have your hands like this. Make sure you have your thumb on the underside of the football and your fingers on the laces. My preference is I like to keep my ring finger and my pinky finger on the second and fourth lace, while my middle finger and pointer finger on the top of the football. Again, considering that the thumb is on the back. Now, everybody's hands size is different, so it's imperative to know and get the feeling of how to properly hold the football just before you start throwing. Get a proper feel for it and what's comfortable for you. So before we begin the basic passes in the series, you gotta know how to properly throw a football. So this form is known as the flamingo form, and my dad taught me when I was younger. It's for beginners, and it will help you get to know the form, how to properly throw the football. So you already have your football in their proper grip and comfortable with it. So by taking the ball from the center, the quarterback brings it up, brings it to the ear, steps back, steps forward, brings the ball over their shoulder, their leg going back like a flamingo. That's a good way to put it, so it's a good example of how to know it, throw it. So, but of course it's much faster. So get the ball, bring it up, step back, go forward, shoulder going over, the ball goes over, goes through, flicking the wrist, leg going back. That's how to properly throw a football. Now we will be conducting the short passes, the beginner passes. So it's imperative you start not far distance, you will keep it short. For individuals who have autism, it's imperative they get to know how to throw shorter passes in comparison to longer passes, as they will be able to get to understanding the feel for the football and how to properly throw. So we will now demonstrate that. So we'll start off with short, simple throws. You remember what to consider your form and how to properly throw the football. So remember the form, the flamingo form. And also when you catch, you always want to make sure you have your hands in a diamond shape, because that helps the ball not going through, where you can be able to catch it better. So remember, when you catch, keep your hands as if they're in a diamond. When you feel a little bit more comfortable, you can move space back. And that's the basic pass and receiving of a football. So now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the video. This is route running. This route here is known as the square in, where it's basically go out and turn right at a 90-degree angle to catch the football. So basically the receiver will run out, run in at a 90-degree angle, and the quarterback will throw the ball to them. So here we will demonstrate to you. You can use many things as cones. We don't have any cones right now, so we're using water jugs. So whatever you have is all right. So we'll now perform it. And also, you can have, this is a much smaller route. You can manipulate your routes where you have them longer or shorter, but for beginners, this is a great short little 10-yard route run. Go. So as you can see, that is a square in route run. Okay, so for this next drill, it is known as the button hook, where it's sort of like a fish hook. For individuals who have autism, it might be helpful that they remember like a hook-like pattern, like a fishing hook, to remember how to properly remember and run this route. So now I'll demonstrate it for you. Go. And as always, it's always important to remember form. Keep your hands in a diamond formation, as it will help you catch the ball better. So this is the end of our presentation. I hope you all were able to learn much. This football series drill set is great for beginners or individuals with autism, as it promotes various biological characteristics and enhancements, such as endurance, agility, lateral quickness, teamwork, and basic football skills. I hope you all learned a lot, and as always, have a great rest of your day, and go Fins!